The love of my life turned out to be a pathological liar. Only part of it. I was with Esteban for 6 months. And even now, not a single day goes by that I don't remember him. He was one of those men who make everything else fade into background noise. He had a way of listening that made you believe what he was saying was important. He looked at me as if I were something he'd been searching for his whole life. He had spark, tenderness, a sharp wit, and above all, a kind of warmth that disarmed any defenses. His family was the same. They welcomed me as if I'd always belonged to them. His mother asked me for recipes and advice even though she cooked 1,000 times better than I did. His father told me about books he thought I'd like, and his sisters included me in every plan, every confidence, as if I were the missing piece they'd always been missing. Everything was so perfect that it sometimes scared me. I thought I didn't deserve so much happiness or that I was living inside a romantic movie that was too good to be true. And sadly I was right. It wasn't true. Absolutely nothing I thought I knew was true. The first signs were so subtle it was ridiculous to pay attention to them. Small inconsistencies in his everyday stories that I attributed to simple absent-mindedness. One day he'd tell me he'd had lunch with an important client at a specific restaurant, and weeks later, passing by that same place, he'd mention that he'd always wanted to go in because he'd never been. If I reminded him of his earlier anecdote, he'd simply smile, touch his forehead with a gesture of feigned confusion and say, "Oh right, you're right, I got the week mixed up." He was so charming at being wrong that I'd end up laughing with him. I never saw the web being woven around me. Over time, the lies began to escalate, becoming more elaborate and central to our lives. Esteban supposedly worked as an architect at a prestigious firm in the city. He would tell me fascinating stories about the projects he was involved in, the problems with contractors, the praise from his bosses. He would show me blueprints on his computer, beautiful sketches that, according to him, kept him up until the early hours of the morning. I admired him deeply. I would make him coffee on those sleepless nights, massage his shoulders, and whisper how proud I was of his talent. The breaking point came in our 5th month together. Esteban told me he had to travel to another city to oversee the construction of an office complex. He would be gone for 4 days. On the second night of his trip, his mother called me, very distressed. She asked if I had managed to reach him, because she had been trying for hours and his phone kept going straight to voicemail. I tried to calm her down, telling her he was probably in an area with no signal or exhausted at the hotel. However, his mother's worry was contagious. I decided to call the hotel where he was supposedly staying, just to make sure he had arrived safely. The hotel receptionist informed me, in a very polite but firm tone, that they had no guest registered under the name Esteban, neither at that moment nor in any past reservations. I thought perhaps the company had made the reservation under someone else's name or using the corporate account. The next morning, driven by a knot in my stomach that I could no longer ignore, I called the architecture firm where he worked. I asked to be put through to his extension, pretending to be a relative with an emergency. The secretary's silence on the other end of the line was the prelude to my nightmare. She told me that no architect by that name worked there. I thought it was a bad joke, but she confirmed that she had been in human resources for 10 years and that no one named Esteban had ever set foot in those offices. The ground disappeared beneath my feet. My mind began to replay the last 6 months of my life at breakneck speed. If he wasn't an architect, where did the blueprints come from? Where did he go every morning when he said goodbye with a kiss and a briefcase? Who was he on this supposed trip with? Desperation drove me to do something I'd never done before. Open his iPad, which he'd left at home. The password was easy to guess. It was our anniversary date. What I found inside shattered what little sanity I had left. The plans and sketches he showed me were images downloaded from Pinterest and design forums in other countries. His emails weren't from any company, but rather confirmations of online bets, deferred debts, and subscriptions to video game forums. But the most painful thing wasn't his fabricated career path, but discovering that I wasn't the only one living in his illusion. There were messages with 2 other women. To one of them, he said he was a resident doctor and exhausted from his shifts. To the other, he swore he was in the process of getting a divorce.